Hi, everyone. Welcome to our live at lunch this Thursday. We are going to talk about all things social media today. I'm very excited to talk about a marketing subject with you because I love marketing. So looking forward to diving into it together. I'm just going to give it a little minute for people to get onto the live because I think my timer might be slightly out in terms of the countdown because it says that it's not 12:30 quite yet, but then my phone has just told me that it's nearly 25 to 1. So if you've been waiting, ever so sorry that you have been waiting for me to come on to the stream, and we're here now anyway, so hopefully you can hear me. Hi, good to see a few people commenting, so that's great. Glad to have you here. So I'm live via StreamYard, so you can I've got people watching on the Tent Peg Collective Facebook page, in our Christian Business Facebook group, our free Facebook group, and then also on our YouTube channel as well. So welcome. And today we are talking about all things social media. So I don't have any slides for you today. I just was going to share a little bit of my own experience and a few thoughts because it is my area of expertise in terms of marketing. It is something that I've thought a lot about because it's something I personally find difficult, even though I do it professionally. And so today I thought we would dive into this topic in a bit more detail today. Okay, so Kay's clock says 12:35, so I'm really sorry. That's me being late there. I'll have to sort my laptop clock out. Good to see you here, Kay. Hey, Benita Grace. You're Benita from India. Really great to have you with us as well. It's always amazing when we have people from lots of different countries. When we did our summit last year, we had people from over 30 different countries. I'm in the UK. If you haven't noticed from my accent already, I'm from the UK and I live in the UK. My name is Turkish, so I'm Turkish background, but I live here. So always nice to have people from further afield joining us as well. Hey, Karen, it's good to have you with us as well. And Catherine is also joining us from Bournemouth. So welcome, Catherine. It is great to have you here as well. So we're talking about social media today, and this is because it's a topic that I get lots and lots of questions about from Christians, from business owners, from people who aren't business owners. I come from a church background that recommends that you don't go on social media because it can be, an idol that takes you away from the Lord Jesus. And so for me, the relationship with social media has always been a tricky one because I'm on it a lot of the time professionally, but I don't necessarily enjoy the space. Sometimes I struggle a bit with the feeling of lack of privacy and things like that as well. Hey, Fee, good to see you here. And Jill from the East Coast, Lowestoft. So that's amazing to have you here as well. East Coast UK, not East Coast US. So basically what we're going to talk about today is, should Christians be on social media, and what are some of the downsides? What are some of the things we should be aware about? How should we show up on social media as Christians? So first up, should Christians be on social media? I think that is totally up to each individual. Some people don't want to be, some people do. And as Christians, we are filled with the Spirit of God. We have our conscience is given to us from the Holy Spirit. If we feel uncomfortable with social media, if we discern that our relationship with social media is taking us away from our relationship with the Lord Jesus, then we want to make sure we are cutting it off and not giving in to temptation to put something ahead of our relationship with the Lord. We want to discern, be sensitive to discerning that. But actually, the Bible doesn't teach us whether or not we should be on Facebook. So we want to use our wisdom to make that decision. For me, I am on social media and I use it a lot for business. And that is the context in which I want to talk to you about it today. How do we use it as business owners, as people who are wise stewards of the resources that we have access to? Hey, Sil, it's good to have you. Hey, Susan and Julie Ann as well. Great to have you all with us on YouTube. So what are some of the downsides of social media? For me, there are numerous. So I think with the rise of the virtual world and the access that we have to things at our fingertips, it can be very easy to disconnect from the physical world. And as Christians, we always want to remember that Jesus came in flesh, and the physical world is really important. As Christians, we weren't designed to be disembodied spirits. Jesus came in flesh and went through death and resurrection to bring physical creation through into that new creation life as well. So, one day all of the physical creation will be renewed. And so we can't discount the physical creation. So that's the first thing that we want to be mindful of as Christians. And in terms of like our relationships with people online, it is amazing to be able to make friends online, but we also want to make sure that we're part of our local church communities and our local communities as well, and not get too embroiled in that. And when you run a business, it can be very easy for your world to become almost completely virtual. And that's something that I've struggled with since lockdown started last year, because I already had a very virtual work world. And then my physical church life, social life, all of those things were taken away and everything became virtual. And I found it really challenging not to feel quite burnt out by it all. So we want to be mindful of spending too much time engaging in the virtual world and not putting enough importance on physicality as well. Now, the flip side of that is that when we did the summit last year, which was, delivered via online platforms and social media, we had an amazing Facebook group for that. We were able to connect with people who would never have been able to come to in-person events. So there's actually a huge gift available in accessibility and making sure that we can connect with people who might be housebound or who might be, who might struggle for health reasons to travel to physical events as well. So we always want to be mindful of both sides of the story when it comes to social media. So the other side of this is thinking through, like, who is your content serving? So there is this real concept, and if you see this on any Christian social media channels, there's this real idea that to be a Christian on social media, you have to post Bible verse quotes. And so there's lots of like Christian quotes, Bible verse quotes, amazing, encouraging things. But that's maybe made us think that's how you're a Christian on social media. And the reality is that, we don't go around doing that in our real lives, right? So we don't want to focus on that in our virtual lives either. We don't go around Tesco's saying, all things work together for good to them that love the Lord, to everyone we meet. We go about our normal lives, but in a way that we want to reflect the life and face of Christ with the people that we meet. So I want you to take away from this that you don't need to post Bible verse quotes on social media in order to be a good Christian business on social media. And it is something that I struggle with as well, because I think we can fall into this idea of, this is how we're Christian on social media. So we build out like Bible verse platforms, and we talk about our Bible study, and we post pictures of our Bibles on our beds in the morning and all those kinds of things. What we end up doing is creating an echo chamber of other Christians who all support and encourage us, and that's great. But it's very little that is focused outwards to other people. And those are the people that we need to share Jesus with much more intentionally. So there's a few reasons that we want to be mindful of the content that we're putting out. And the way that we can do that as business owners is understand who we serve and why. So who is it that your own gifts and strengths and the things that you have been given by the Lord to do, who are you serving with those things, and what problems are you helping them with? How are you adding value to them? And then show up and do that with excellence. We work at whatever we can with all of our hearts as to the Lord, but we serve the people around us with the things that he's given us. So we want to show up as a master of one. So yes, Julie's got a great quote there. I drop it into conversations as much as possible, speak to each other in Psalms, etc. And that is, totally true. We want all of our words to be seasoned with salt. We want to, speak truth and those things as well. But we don't necessarily put it in a format where somebody immediately looks at that and thinks, oh, look, Romans 8:28. So we just want to be mindful of creating, a set of content online that's quite different to maybe how we would normally communicate and how we would naturally engage with people as well. So yeah, the Bible on the bedpost do make me giggle. It's amazing that people are reading their Bibles, and hopefully they're reading them as well as taking pictures of them. I personally have never read the Bible in such an aesthetically pleasing manner, so I always feel like it's not very authentic if I ever were to post that kind of thing. If you see me posting that, you feel free to DM me and be like, Maneksha, I know that isn't how you read the Bible. So yeah, just some thoughts on that anyway. So when we're creating our content for social media, rather than feeling like we constantly have to be putting Bible verses out there or whatever it may be, instead we're thinking about what is it that we're called to do with our gifts? How do we create value with that? How do we build relationships with people so that, you know, if they're going through a difficult time, they're like, oh, that person's a Christian, I'm going to send them a message and ask them to tell me why. And I've had that so many times. I've had so many conversations with people who aren't Christians because they wanted to find out more. So just for context, I have my own Instagram account where I talk about marketing. So that's maneksha.stewart. And I mention my faith on there occasionally, but I don't post Bible verses and stuff on there. But I often do get messages from people asking me, why are you a Christian? Like this, I don't understand, like, tell me more. And so you can create a space for your business without it needing to always fit into that idea of, 2021 Christian content. So then in terms of like the practicalities of social media, if you want to, find out more about some of that stuff, we have loads of content inside the Tempo Collective. I'm not going to go into the individual, how to post a social media post stuff on here, because most of you know about that already because you're on YouTube. If you do want to know more about that, let me know in the comments. I'm happy to answer questions around that kind of thing as well. But the other thing that I wanted to talk about was actually trolls. So this is something that lots of people struggle with from a mindset point of view about putting themselves out there on social media, because it's like, oh, what if I get trolled? You are going to get trolled for sure. But the other part of this is like part of my own personal story is, I've worked in the marketing space for a long, long time before I set up Cheerfully Given. I have been on social media since it started as well, classic millennial. And I have literally never, ever in my life been trolled as much as when I do social media for Cheerfully Given. And I find that really depressing, not because it's non-Christians, like I kind of wouldn't mind that, but actually it's other Christians trolling me on social media. And so, there's this real like sensitivity, I think, in Christian circles, and that is a difficult thing to deal with. Like I've found it challenging, and I do it professionally and have a lot more practice than the average small business owner who's maybe starting out, growing their social channels, things like that as well. But this trolling thing, one, it happens all the time. Two, if someone trolls you and you feel upset by that, feel free to hide or delete their comment, block the person. Like, don't feel like you need to keep them around. There's always going to be people who disagree with you and disagree with what you do on the internet. It's just the nature of the internet. And that's the other thing that we have to bear in mind with the digital space, is that we have context claps. So when I'm talking to you on video, the reason I like video is because it's like a bit closer to being able to talk to you in person. So when I say things, you hear my tone, you see my body language, you see my facial expressions. And so there's an additional amount of context there. When you're on social media, a lot of the time you're seeing a very small fraction of somebody's life, somebody's thought process, somebody's experiences. You're not seeing a lot of these non-verbal communication tools. And so what we end up with is a really judgmental space where people see a fact in a vacuum and then think, I disagree with that, I'm going to tell that person that I really disagree with them. And so when we're posting things as business owners, often we will be faced with people sending us messages, leaving comments, saying, I don't agree with you, or you're a scam artist, and all this kind of thing. And that's an unfortunate side effect of the internet. But it is particularly an issue in Christian circles, because you can say something as a Christian and, loads of other Christians might disagree with you. Like, I come from a background of like very, very conservative, like almost like a cult, basically, because it was like, if you don't agree with us on every single point, then you're an apostate. And so you can post something, somebody somewhere is going to think that you're not a true Christian. We've got Lent prayer trees on that Kath Sales from Hope and Ginger has created, that we post every year on Lent. Every single year we get people telling us that Lent is a pagan festival and who do we think we are? We're not true Christians, all that kind of thing. And it's like, yeah, that's fine. That's kind of your opinion. We, look back throughout church history beyond some of the Reformation stuff, and we have our own decisions for, putting those things out and celebrating Lent and different things like that as well. So the point that I'm getting to, so this is like a bit more waffly than last week's because it's a bit more conceptual, but basically with the idea of showing up online in a Christian space, we have to understand that there's always going to be people who don't necessarily agree with us, who might not like us, who might have a bad opinion about what we're doing. But if you as a Christian on social media are ever tempted to leave a comment that is like really negative or discouraging, I would just encourage you to think about the fact that all of our speech needs to be seasoned with grace and yes, seasoned with salt. But actually, when we're on the internet, we're losing out on the local church life that each of us are part of. So for me, if I'm on social media, my husband is my church leader, so that's an interesting contextual thing. But I've also got a spiritual director, Paul. And if I said anything online that was against the way of Jesus or that was problematic, they would call me out on it and they would, have that conversation. And so for me, I've got accountability in my local church family. And Jesus is our ultimate judge as well. We're not called to judge other people because actually we will be judged one day too. And so when I'm posting on social media, I'm like, people might disagree with me, that's fine. But I know that I've got local church accountability. And I also know that I'm going to answer to Jesus one day for what I do. And so if there's this temptation to disagree actively with people on social media because you think that they've misinterpreted the Bible or you don't agree with something that they're doing, that's not your responsibility to fix. And wider Christendom needs to understand that as well. It's not our responsibility to try and fix things that we don't agree with on the internet. But it is important that each of us is part of a local church family that is going to hold us accountable for our actions, our deeds, and the way that we live our lives. And so that's something for us all to consider as well. And I think something that wider Christianity would do well to think through on the internet, because I've had non-Christians come up to me and say, what is it with Christians on the internet? Like, you'll post stuff and they get so aggressive in the comments and they really attack each other. Like, what is that about? I thought it was a religion of love and unity. And I'm like, yeah, just like don't judge Jesus by a few people in the Facebook comments. So we want to be mindful that when we're posting stuff on the internet, it's not just that we're arguing with each other, actually non-Christians going to see that as well. And so that's the other reason I would encourage you, if you're getting trolled at any point, to hide and ban or hide and delete. If you hide, then people can still see their own comment, but other people can't see it. If you delete stuff, it can wind trolls up even more. So what I would say is if you're going to delete it completely, make sure you ban the person from your page as well. And what we do, delete and ban or hide, and just pray that that person meets somebody in their physical life, in their local church, who is going to help and encourage them to meet with Jesus, because there's always deeper stuff going on for people who show up with that kind of negativity, and we can't ever fix that. So if we engage with people, it's very, very rare that you're going to help somebody change their mind online as well. So this is basically just a little bit of an encouragement, because loads of people that I know have been trolled on social media as well. And so I did just want to talk about it. And I found, I'm quite a resilient person, but I have found it really discouraging being online as a Christian. And it has made me less inclined to do things like videos like this, because I'm like, oh, every time I do something, like there's a bit of stress in case somebody shows up and like starts creating problems in the comments. Now I'm like, chilled enough that actually it's fine and I can tackle it if it comes across, and I know what I think and all of those things. But it just makes life a bit harder than it needs to be. So those are just some thoughts on the concept of social media, how we approach it as followers of Jesus, and then this idea of being trolled, which is a really common thing to deal with. And you are not alone if you face that kind of challenge. So yeah, if you've got any questions about actual social media use as a business owner, feel free to whack them in the comments, and I'm happy to answer those, because I know this has been a little bit more big picture than specifically here's how to use Instagram hashtags. But if you do have any specific questions like that, pop them in the chat box and I am happy to answer those in the time that we have left, which is about 10 minutes because I was late. So let me go through the comments here. So Susan has a great comment here. I love the thought of doing your business tasks excellently for the benefit of others, reflecting God's love and creativity in us. Yes, exactly. We're called to love God and love our neighbours. And so we want to always be devoted to the Lord Jesus. We want to make sure that when we're working, it's for him and for his glory and for his kingdom. And then that out of that flows this love for neighbor and serving the people around us. And so when we focus on Jesus, everything else falls into place. Paul. So Paul is my spiritual director, and he does a lot of stuff on social media and gets trolled a lot himself as well. So he also can attest to that. Here we go. So Jill says, I find that so awful that you've experienced that. Are people open to dialogue and discussion when they criticize, or is it a quick hit and run? So people will often be willing to dialogue, but not willing to change their opinion. And so I often, if somebody's posted something that's like a theological or biblical criticism, I will respond once to clarify, because other people might have that question too. But often they'll follow up and be like, no, you're wrong. And it's fine. I'm like, that's okay. It's not something that I can easily solve. But I will, if it's something that's to do with like, oh, you're a terrible Christian because the Bible doesn't really teach that, I'll go back and I'll say, actually, if you look here, here, and here, this is where we've got that from. This is why we're fine with that. It might not be your opinion, but that's fine. Feel free to keep scrolling. And then occasionally we'll get, most of the time, if it's like an atheist and somebody who isn't a Christian, which is who you would expect to be trolling Christians online, right? People who like actively disagree with your entire lifestyle and system of beliefs. If it's those people, they often will just like do a quick hit and run where they say, they'll use bad language and tell you to, get lost in foul language, or, they'll tell you you're stupid or something like that. And that's like, oh yeah, that, whatever, that's fine. So often the Christian trolls are the most persistent. I also get DMs. So it's not even public necessarily, but I'll have people sending me DMs and telling me that I'm a terrible person quite a lot. So it's fine. I am, happy with my identity in Jesus, but you do have to do some hard work on that front if you are going to show up in a space online. Super. So, okay, Kay says, can you describe what you mean by troll? Is it a negative opinion or is it worse? So it can be a negative opinion, but usually it's a negative opinion with an extra filter of you're a terrible person because I disagree with you. So it's like this judgment on your entire being and person. You have like one thing you do where they disagree and they'll just be like, you're not a real Christian, you're going to hell. And so that's the kind of thing that we're dealing with. And it's fine. That's their opinion. I can't change that. I'm only responsible for my own actions, and my own actions are accountable to Jesus and then also to my church leaders. So that's okay. That's what we need to get to, everyone who's watching. How do you deal with negative reviews or feedback on social media? So if you've had negative reviews and feedback about your products or experiences, I would always want to go above and beyond to try and resolve that and make sure it's dealt with. We have some sellers in Cheerfully Given who, if somebody is unhappy with their service, they will, refund them and send them a replacement as like a double blessing to try and make amends, because they want to make sure that everyone is left with this positive experience of their business. So it can be down to your own way of dealing with things. Often, we just want to be really focused on serving people and reaching a resolution, especially if they're paying customers and clients. We want to make sure that we're doing the right thing to amend that and make sure that they don't feel like they've been conned or anything like that. We want to make sure that we're transparent and have open dialogue with those people. If it's somebody who's persistent, so sometimes what we'll find is like something's arrived damaged or something's arrived and it wasn't quite what they thought it would be, and we'll say, okay, that's fine, if you return it to us, we'll issue a refund, that's fine. Sometimes people will take that so much further and then say things like, this is the worst experience I've ever had, you're terrible, I'm gonna slag you off to all my friends, and take that approach. Now that's between them and the Lord. Like, if we're doing everything we can and they're still not being satisfied by that, we need to just let that go and that can be difficult, but unfortunately, again, customer service is not always the best. I always try to be extra nice when I'm talking to people on customer service, because having been on the other side of it, you can get people who are really, really like, they'll really attack you. But again, that's often to do with things that they're going through in their own circumstances. So we just want to be try to be empathetic and gracious towards people, regardless of how they're making us feel in the moment as well. So Catherine, as a health coach, I encourage my clients not to spend less time on social media, but then I find I need to be on it. I encourage my clients to spend less time on social media, I think is what you're saying there, Catherine. But then I find I need to be on it myself because of my business. How do you handle this love-hate relationship? So I'm on it all the time for business, but I don't really use it personally as much. Like if I'm sharing something on my personal social media, it's like a funny story related to like one of my dogs or something, but it's not my own personal life. I don't talk about that on social media because I enjoy real relationships and one-to-one conversations more than that. So for me, yes, I want to spend as little time as possible on social media. So that might look like setting up systems or just understanding how you do enjoy using it. So for me, I like using Instagram, where I can have DMs with people and we can maybe voice note back and forth, because it feels a bit more personal and a bit more like a real conversation. And so when I'm on social media, for me, it's about engagement and building relationships. And that's partly why I struggle a bit with the cheerfully given social media, because like on our Instagram account, we've got like 20,000 followers. And I'm like, I don't have time to like get to know everyone. So for me, it feels like a bit overwhelming when you've got a large number of followers, because you can't be as relational. It is a bit more like speaking into a vacuum and maybe, you know, responding to a few people. So you have to find the right balance for you and for what you're comfortable with. And, you know, we always just, if we're feeling uncomfortable with something, we do need to understand that the spirit is just like helping us discern and be wise in our day-to-day. So if we're feeling uncomfortable with something, I don't think we should disregard that. I think we need to think about it more deeply. And with social media, for me, that looks like putting boundaries in place around what I post, how much I post, things like that. So I hope that helps. Benita says, my Instagram got banned where I share gospel quotes and Bible verses. Yeah, that can occasionally happen. If people report our profiles, things like that happen as well. We had an issue with our social media channels getting restricted at the end of last year. Occasionally, if someone, you know, if your content's getting in front of people who disagree with what you say and they report it, even if it's not valid, you know, you may have to appeal that. So that is an unfortunate side effect as well. But yeah, if you're using social media to share Bible quotes, amazing. Obviously on Cheerfully Given, we share a lot of Christian content. And yeah, on my personal profile, I don't share as much explicitly Christian content. I'm not posting gospel quotes and things like that, but I'm just having those conversations with people if they ask me in my DMs as well. And praying for opportunities to talk to people about Jesus. So that's it's just gone over one. I'm sorry that I was slightly late today. I will make sure that doesn't happen again next week. If you've got any other questions about social media, do feel free to drop them in the comments and I'll come back and answer them after this video as well in the comments. But this is your last chance warning to ask any questions, and then we'll be back again next Thursday for more Live at Lunch to talk about another topic. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but do keep an eye on our social channels and on your emails, and you'll get a notification. But basically, we're live here every week at 12:30. So great stuff. Thank you to everyone who's joined today. If you've got anything specific that we can support with or help with, do check out the Tent Peg Collective. We are just about to do some really fun webinars and things. I know I mentioned that last week as well. Just had a few things come up. So like after Easter, we've got some different free trainings that you'll be able to access. And the price is actually going up for the Tent Peg Collective in April. So anyone who joins before that will get the old price. But if you decide to wait, then the price is going up. So it'll be more expensive for any new members who join after that as well. So awesome. Thanks so much, everyone. And have a great Thursday. And I'll see you next Thursday for more Live at Lunch. But meanwhile, enjoy the rest of your day and have a great weekend.